We've talked about how the subconscious selves form a perception filter that's very much tied to your worldview. But we're going to go deeper, because it's very important to come to the realization of how the subconscious selves, based on your worldview, will distort your approach to changing your life, changing your psychology. And it'll actually try to put you on the wrong track so you can't get the results that you want. So, we have a worldview. It forms a box. Starts at the identity level of the mind. Certain parameters there. You have been brought up to see yourself a certain way. You think this is who you are and this is how you can deal with the world. More concrete at the mental level, and it has the emotional charge and direction at the emotional level that causes you to feel a compulsion to do certain actions or avoid other actions. So now you have come to this point that I talked about in the last one. You realized, yes, your worldview gives you a certain sense of equilibrium, but your worldview is threatened. So you feel that your sense of equilibrium is threatened. And this means you reach what could be said to be the first major turning point in changing your life, where you realize you are willing to shift the balance between your sense of security and equilibrium and the need to discover something new. You see what I said? The effect of having a worldview is gives you a sense of equilibrium, but it's based on the specific beliefs of the worldview, like for example Christian doctrines or the materialist beliefs, not being threatened. And if they are threatened, these specifics are threatened, then your sense of equilibrium is threatened. So you could say, you look at many people, for example, many Christians, completely closed to looking at their own psychology. They don't want to look at their own psychology. Why is that? Because they are afraid of looking for some new ideas that are beyond their existing worldview. Same thing might go for an atheist. We don't need to change our psychology. A Christian might believe your psychology is created by God, nothing you can do about it. Or the atheist might believe, yeah, it's just nurture and nature and your genetic inheritance and nothing you can do about your psychology. And what they do is, of course, they label the perception filter, the subconscious self, they label new ideas. They could be dangerous, they could be neutral, or they could be constructive. But the more people are attached to their worldview, their sense of equilibrium, their sense of security, the more likely they are to label new ideas as dangerous. So why is that a problem? Well, we have touched upon this before, but if you are to change anything in your life, how is that going to happen? Well, there are two approaches that human beings take to this, if you look at it historically. And many people think that, as we talked about in the very beginning, your inner experience of life is the direct product of what happens to you outside in the outside world. So this means they are open to the belief that the only way to change your psychology is to change something outside yourself. And this is the primary weapon that the subconscious selves have for aborting your growth before you even get started. Because the reality is, if you are to change anything in your life, you have to change something by first of all coming to a higher awareness of how your psyche works, how your psychology functions. And then based on that higher awareness, you do something. So in other words, we have the two views. Change can only come by changing something outside yourself. Change can only come by changing something inside yourself. And what have I said about the subconscious selves? They have a survival instinct. They want to stay hidden from you. Okay. Well, if the selves can prevent you from looking inside yourself, then you're never going to discover those selves, are you? So therefore, I've said the selves form a perception filter. They are projecting upon situations. As I said, you might have a defense mechanism, a self that feels it has to defend you, it gets attacked, and it's just looking for the slightest sign that somebody's attacking you, and then you go into the defense mode of attacking back. But if you step back, then all of the cells you have are forming a perception filter that is actively projecting at you, projecting at your mind, that the only way to change your life is to change something outside yourself. This is the central perception filter that the cells form. It's not something they maliciously do. As I said, they are more instinctual, but it's their survival instinct that makes them project this. So you have, as I said, the problem creator self. It projects. All problems are out there. It's external conditions, it's other people that are creating the problems. And therefore, the problem solver self is projecting at you. The only way to solve your problems is to change something out there. Change other people, change your other situation. If you have enough money, you'll be happy. As a projection. And so, the entire foundation for changing your life is that you challenge this view. It's really very, very simple. The view that the problems are out there and that the solutions are out there is completely disempowering. Because what power do you have to change the world? What power do you have to change many other people? So you see, what the selves are projecting at you is you are disempowered. You have very strict limits of what you can do about your life. And the key to any kind of growth, any success at changing your life, is to challenge this lie and realize there may be many things you can't change outside yourself. But you are never powerless to change something inside yourself. So part of what we come to here is this realization that, yes, there is an external world. Of course it affects you. And there may be many things you can't change in the outside world. But you always have the option to change how you look at the outside world and how you react or don't react to it. Because your reaction takes place inside your mind. And you have the potential to take control, to take command over your mind. And that is what higher awareness psychology is all about. This is what any kind of real psychology is about, any kind of spirituality is about. Now, in order to really make this shift, you have to look at that there are many forms of thought systems, we might say, that are aimed at people who have come to this realization, I need to change something, I need to change something. But it's still aimed at diverting you from really looking inside yourself. And there are religions, spiritual groups, aspects, certain psychological systems that are based on this idea that there's an automatic way to change your psychology. That this can happen automatically. So for example, personally, when I was young, I was involved with a meditation movement that promoted a specific form of meditation. And it was claimed that this meditation was so unique that if you practiced it regularly, you would automatically, over time, reach a higher state of consciousness. You didn't have to look at your psychology. You didn't have to do any kind of psychological work. You just had to meditate regularly. And there are many other organizations, movements like that will say, practice this particular technique, and one day you will be in a higher state of consciousness where you have peace of mind and your problems have gone away. Your suffering has gone away. And so, as I said, the first line of defense of the subconscious selves is your outer worldview that makes you believe you don't have to do anything to look at your psychology. You can only change your life by changing things outside yourself. The second line of defense is that once you realize that maybe that you need to do something, is you just need to practice this technique, then you will automatically change your psychology. But now look at it this way. If you take what we talked about in the previous talks, you can pull this together and realize the reality of your life is everything in your life experience is a product of what happens at the 4 levels of your mind. The energy, the consciousness is flowing first into your identity, takes on images there. They set the parameters for what can happen at the mental level. You are making the images more concrete, but only within the parameters set at the identity level. Your emotions are following from your thoughts, but only within the parameters of the thoughts. And your actions follow from your emotions, but only within the parameters of the emotions. As long as you are not really self-aware, but you are allowing the subconscious selves to determine your reactions. So, everything in your life experience is a result of what's happening at these 4 levels of your mind. Yes, there are outer circumstances, yes. And the outer circumstances will force you to react, but your reaction is determined by what happens at the 4 levels of the mind. Doesn't matter what you change on the outer. Your reaction to life, the way you look at life, the way you feel about life, the way you feel about yourself, will not change until you change what is happening at the 4 levels of your mind. Yeah, you can say, if I have enough money and I feel secure, I won't feel threatened. Yes, but will you be happy? Look at many people, billionaires, have more money than they can spend. Are they happy? No, they feel constantly threatened. They could lose their money, somebody wants to take it away from them, they have to defend this. They are some of the most unhappy people. So, no outer change will guarantee your inner sense of happiness or peace of mind. The only thing that will change your experience of life is that you actively and consciously change what's happening at the 4 levels of your mind. Meaning, you become conscious that you have these subconscious selves, and it's the subconscious selves that determine your reaction. And only when you let the subconscious selves go, when you dissolve them, will you be free to choose a higher reaction. It's the only way, it is the only way your life can change. Cannot change in any other way. Because you are inside the perception filter of the 4 levels of your mind. You are perceiving the world through it and the subconscious selves that are there. In one situation, a certain subconscious self is triggered, now you're looking at it that way. Another situation triggers another self, now you're looking at it this way. The only way you can change the way you look at life, the way you react to life, the way you feel about life, about yourself, is to systematically dissolve, discard those subconscious selves. So instead of being colored by all of these selves, you are more free to choose your reaction to life. You could say, as some teachers will say, happiness is a choice. And yeah, there's some validity to that. But it doesn't help to tell people this as long as they have all these subconscious selves. Because as long as you're reacting through these subconscious selves, you can't make the choice to be happy. In order to be able to make that choice, you have to free yourself from all these subconscious selves so that your reaction to life is not predetermined, but you can actually choose. You can choose to have a positive view of life. And this, of course, is what HAP is designed to gradually take you closer and closer to that goal.